Hey guys, welcome to this joint effort between Jack's Business Talk, Trade Better 99, and ReiJarrod. Today we're going to talk about co-living, and myself and Trade Better invited the king of co-living, Jarrod.
The king of. All right, there you go. That's funny. I have three houses, man. I'm just getting started.
Maximizing.
It's more than us.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. All right. There's a guy I know has 33 houses. He would be, and then what is it? Sam Wiegert's got like 200 units, something like that. He's been doing it for
Wow.
15 years. Those are the kings right there.
That was like I forget. I was on Mark's channel. Someone was calling me the king of Pittsburgh. I was just like, I have 4 units. I wouldn't call myself the king of anything over here, but maybe the Duke of being a clown.
There you go. I'm pretty good at
Uh,
that.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm pretty good at being a clown too. I can give you some competition in the clown department.
There you
Someone on Trade Better's episode with Mark last week, someone said, "Where's the funny pumpkin headed hat wearing one?"
go. Yeah.
So, when you were looking for different markets, Jared, what made you settle on you're in Arizona, correct?
I invest in Arizona but live in Oregon. Yeah. Yeah.
What helped you find Arizona? Like would what you did be duplicable for the East Coast?
No, I mean you can operate out of anywhere, but for me, I think your question is why did I pick the Arizona market?
Hmm.
Yeah, I know some people say you can deal with certain municipalities and all this stuff, but for me, I wanted to be in a landlord friendly state, just flat out. I live in a non-landlord friendly state, so I could invest here, and I know what that's like. So I was looking in, not to get political, but I was looking in basically red states that match up more with landlord friendly. So for me, it was Arizona, Texas, Florida, and then there was a couple other states, but those are the big three. And with the property taxes and insurance in Florida, and man, what a lucky call on that deal. This was before the hurricanes and all that, but that was in my head. I'm like, all right, well, it's pretty expensive and the risk of things happening. I was like, okay, well, Florida's out. And then Texas was a really good contender, but the property taxes for out of state investors were just too much for me. So that's why Arizona. So then once I figured that piece out, I was like, all right, well, because Arizona, I mean, I'll give you a reference. Like Arizona's property taxes are about 2 grand for a $500,000 house a year, right? So that's
Wow.
pretty good in my book. And I've got one that's like 1,800 or less. Anyway, it's relatively cheap. You go to Texas or Florida, you just double that at the minimum, right? You're north of that big time. But I'll just say very conservatively double that. And then the insurance. I have one house. I pay $839 a year for insurance. Now, granted, I am a 10K deductible, but anyway, the cost of the property ownership includes those, and so those played a factor, big factor for me. Now, the negative was the cost of the actual house. So most people look at that first and go the other way around, but for me, I was looking for it would fit. It was on the high side, but yeah, that's a good start. I don't know if you want to go down any roads there, but that's what kind of led me to Arizona and
Yeah.
proximity. I'm in Oregon, so that played a tiny role, but I was willing to go wherever. So
Yeah. So were you looking at job markets as well? Because you have a specialty in tech. So were you looking at areas that you might know or
I didn't look at any specific job markets. I looked no, so believe it or not, but the city of Phoenix is the fifth largest in the nation, pretty big. I felt like I got a pretty good pool of people to target for my strategy there. So yeah, and in a way, I mean, there's a lot of tech there. There's the L, and as I was making my decisions, there were things that were coming down the pike, like obviously TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductors up there. And then there's just a whole bunch of businesses coming in. LG's coming in with a big battery plant, things like that. So I was like, and the population growth now, it has slowed down, but it's still increasing. But there's a lot of a lot of people moving there. I like it there. Not in the summertime, but other than that, I like it there. So there's that too, right?
Yeah. Do you worry about like local infrastructure, like buses and other items, especially since you're doing by the room? So
So that is it's part of the concern. It's there, but it's not the best. I'll just tell you.
yeah,
But it is possible. Like I had a guy that was living in one of the houses that went. I don't know why he did this for a while too. He would work at the airport, and he stayed in one of the houses, the furthest that I had. Right. I don't know why. And it had rooms available, and I asked him to, but whatever. He would get on two separate buses and transfer to the airport. It would take him like an hour and a half or something. But you can do it. It's not the best, but it is. If I do try to get somewhat close to proximity to buses if I can, but it's not. I know a lot of people that would be a deal breaker, but for me, it's not. It's close enough because I do have, I'd say, 60% of people have, maybe half the people have cars, something like that. So parking's a big deal for me.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that's one of the main things I look at is parking. Like if I see I call it a sandwich house. Like if it's a house in between two houses and you have two carports in the street, it's not going to work for me unless
right.
across the street is maybe a sideways house, and then you have a little bit of a chance there. But even then, it's still kind of tight. You don't want to piss off the neighbors, certain areas. But
Right.
so yeah.
And yeah, I guess following up with that. So with parking and everything, Virginia has lots of issues with HOAs. Do you have that issue in Arizona or
I don't know. I don't buy an HOAs, so
there you go. That
yeah.
works.
So I avoid them
So,
like the plague. I've got a couple horror stories personally with HOAs, so I don't deal with them for that. And I don't like the fact that in the Phoenix Metro anyway, a lot of people are telling me, "Oh, the HOADs are going up. How do you deal with it?" It's like, well, I don't buy an HOA, so I don't have to worry about that.
nice.
Yeah, with this strategy, I think the rep by room strategy, I think it's best to avoid HOAs. Just my opinion. I know people that are doing it. And those are the eight. If you are going to do it, which I don't recommend, but if you are, look at the ones that have been around for a while that have been established, and the HOA dues are relatively low. And by low, I mean under $100. So
Okay.
like a lot of them have 45. They've gone from 34 to 54 in the last like 10 years or whatever. They're basically there to maintain the grounds and do the common areas. And if my guess on those would be that they would be the ones that don't give you a lot of grief and they're not trying to gouge and all that, just from word of mouth and some personal experience. But to me, I just don't do HOAs. Yeah.
That's a good way.
What about doing those near college towns and stuff? Is that an idea or
Yeah, for some, not for me. I mean, that's why I kind of try to avoid Tempe. It's like I'm trying to hit East Valley. I don't want to have to deal with, I guess it would depend on the college. Like if you have an undergrad college that's a party town, no way in hell I'm going to be
no, no,
anywhere
no.
near that.
No,
But
I
if
was
you
talking
have
about if you have a college that is further along that you can get people that have already finished with their bachelor's and now going for their master's and that kind of stuff.
that wouldn't be too bad because in general, like I say that because I'm right next to Pacific University, and they're going for it's an optometrist school. Did I say that right? Anyway, they do the eye thing. I don't know, optometry, and it's the number 3 in the world. That just
Okay.
happens to be in my backyard, which is crazy. I didn't even know that. In the future, we're gonna probably rent this house that we live in out, but it's kind of a weird. It's a like a 4,000 square foot house, and it's kind of a weird deal. But we want to travel after we're done with get a real estate up and running here. We want to travel. Like, well, what do we do with the house? And it just so happens we want to be here in the summer, but the rest of the year we travel or be in Arizona. So for 9 months during the school season, it would be perfect for that. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm never going to do it, but yeah, definitely undergrads scare me. I had a student or two along the way, and no offense to the younger generation, but man, just the glimpse I've seen scares the hell out of me. So I'd stay away from it. But yeah, post grad and some of those guys going for doctorates and whatnot, yeah, they're pretty squared away. They're hell, if anything, they might beat up your internet, but other than that, you'd probably be all right. I'm just worried about damage and issues and lawsuits and blah blah blah. There's some people that do it, and how they do it is they get the parents to sign, right? And
Hmm.
so they get some coverage there. But even still, man, I don't want to do. I deal with enough stuff. Like I know Dion says, "Oh, I can never do that because it's too much work," and he's right. It is a lot of work, but the cash flow, man, it's totally worth it, especially if you do it like I'm doing it. Sorry, I know I'm going off the rails here, but
No.
upfront vetting, that's key, man. Like I don't have half the problems that I hear from other people. I'm not trying to brag. I've had my share of problems, don't get me wrong, but they've gone way down since the last 5 months or so, four months or so, because I had some issues and I thought I was vetting well and apparently not. And so then I figured out some more things and added some more things and I changed my tune up front. When I talk to people, I come at them a different way. I basically tell them, hey, this only works if you're clean. This only works if you get along with people. This only works if you can't do any of those things, then guess what? This is not a fit for you. And I'm pretty direct about it, right? Because I don't want to deal with the stuff down, and I don't want the members that I have now to deal with it either. And so,
Hmm.
and I think the
Right.
guy that just came in, he's coming in today. I interviewed him a couple days ago. He appreciated that. He's an older guy. He was like 54, 4 years older than me. And he transferred from California and he appreciated that. And so I think the older, more mature people, hopefully they appreciate that. And I'm not an asshole about it. I'm pretty direct about it. And I go over the cleanliness piece of that like 3 separate times, just very redundant because cleanliness is key for co-living. If you're not clean, man, it's not going to work. I mean, in your own room, okay, fine. But in the common areas is what I'm referring to and focusing on. So
I mean, is it basic stuff that you're talking about? Is like pick up your trash, clean, your spills. Is this kind of
it
like,
is. It's basic stuff, but you
wow,
still got to harp on it, man. Like, um, and it doesn't matter the age range from what I've seen. I mean, people would think, oh, the younger crowd, because I know I just got through harping on the college kids, but that's just more for partying and destruction and safety and everything else. And if you had one or two if you did a whole house college kids, I wouldn't want to do that in undergrad. But also, if you just had one or two in there, disturb the rest of the members. So there's multiple facets to that. But yeah, sorry, you asked something there. I kind of get off the rails. What was the?
oh no, it's like I guess I was going to build off that saying. So now that you've learned the last few months, what are like the top three items that you would say that has made your vetting even better?
Uh, yeah, the trying to listen to not, and this is tough because you're not supposed to do certain things, but listen to how things were said, not what was said. That
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
For example, the guy that caused one of the biggest grenades ever, when I was interviewing him, he said, "Oh, you're not gonna get any problems out of me. I'm this and I'm that." And he really played it up, and I was like, looking back on it, that was such a red flag. But I don't know what the hell I was thinking, man. I must have had an off day or something. So he came in and cratered, like 4 people moved out. Like, oh man. Um, but yeah, just talking to him about cleanliness, right? And I've had cleanliness, guests, smoking, pets, and just general responses, I guess. So like
Gotcha.
if guests is we don't do guests, and if they tend to ask a lot of questions or any at all around the guest thing, you can bet you're going to have some guest problems, right? That's been
Mhm.
my the smoking thing isn't has only been an issue like twice. Typically people are pretty respectful for that. That's kind of nice. So there's no smoking on the property, and the people that do smoke either smoke away or they smoke off the property so the smoke doesn't linger in. So that, believe it or not, that's actually been pretty nice. I've had one or two, but not the end of the world there. But yeah, that's
That's great.
the biggest ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been enjoying your remodeling series and watching your houses and stuff.
Yeah, so we take, for those that don't know, we take 2000, my buy box is 2000 square feet or better, no HOA, no pool, and plenty of parking is what I'm looking for. And as a bonus, if it has paid for solar, that's great. But we'll take a 2000 square foot house or around that. All of them so far have been over 2000. And 2.5 bath is pretty key. I do have one that's a 2 bath. And it's okay, but looking back on it, that was probably my first house I bought. That's not my buy box now. My buy box now is 2.5 or better. It's working out. It's not bad because one of the bathrooms is Jack and Jilled, but generally 2.5 bath or better. And we'll go in 2000 square foot house and we'll add bedrooms. I try to hit 8 bedrooms. So living room, dining room, Arizona room, things like that. You can add bedrooms, and as long as you do it nice. Like I've seen people go in and do the weirdest stuff. Like they add just goofy rooms and walls and it looks like a maze. And I don't do that for multiple reasons. One, it's just goofy. And two, if there's a safety issue, fire or something like that, or medical issue where medical personnel need to get into the house and get there, they're going to run through a maze. None of that sounds good to me. Plus it's just goofy. And my strategy involves potentially in the future taking the walls down and putting the house back the way it was if I had to, which means I don't go to the garage. I don't add second kitchens and do all this goofy stuff. I try to keep it as close to the original house as I possibly can, to the tune of even the primary bedroom. Instead of blowing a hole in the wall and getting access to that bathroom and doing goofy stuff like that, I just this is a little goofy though. I take the primary bedroom if the layout is such and just simply wall off the bedroom portion and create a hallway to the bathroom. So that way in the future, that part is probably the goofiest. But it's okay. It gives the rest of the house access to that full bath. Now there's one house that we're firing off an offer tonight. It has 4 bathrooms. And so that house we would leave the primary alone and then just charge more for that one. So because there's 7 other bedrooms. Well, there's only 3, but we would be up to 7 other bedrooms. Actually, that house we're going to be at 6. So this one will be south of my 8-bedroom count. But the reason that is I think we can add. Anyway, there's some reasons for that. We're going to do 7-bedroom. But yeah, typically I just leave the house intact as best I can and just add walls. So
cool. And I guess so. Have you ever had any issues with members doing their own kitchenettes in their rooms and anything like that with their own hot plates?
Not to my knowledge.
That's great.
But that's another thing that's on the list that I go through is no kitchen appliances in the bedrooms. We make sure the kitchens are nice. We've got granite or quartz and stainless steel and plenty of stuff. And I check in, every quarter or so. Hey, everything's cool. One house I bought a coffee pot and a nice toaster oven and some other stuff because they asked for it. I'm like, okay. The other houses they don't care about that. Like it's weird. I only have 3 houses, but all 3 are completely different. Like one house, like my Glendale house, nobody talks to each other. They stay to themselves. They don't, and it's a big house. It was a 2,500 square foot house, and now it's a 2,900 square foot house.
Wow.
We added on the Arizona room, turned into 2 rooms, and a lot of people work like more than one job there, so they're always gone anyway. And that house kind of just they stay to themselves. Then I get another house that they love each other. They get along. I have one lady that 2 people actually that won't leave that house because of the people. And I'm happy for that because there was two guys that were awesome, Chuck and Bill. They both left over time. One guy moved to Florida and another guy bought a house or whatever he was doing. And Bill was a chef,
nice.
A really, really good chef, right? And a wine guy. And so they would get together on Friday nights for, they do pizza nights and board game nights. And then on Saturdays, they would do like whatever Bill wanted to do, rotisserie chicken night and all this stuff. It was awesome, right? And so I don't know how that happened or whatever it did, but if I could bottle up and sell it, I'd be a millionaire because everybody loves that house. It's great. And the funny thing is, I like the house. I like the layout and I like what we did to it. We made it nice, but for whatever reason, I just don't like that house. I mean, it's nice and everything, but I guess compared to the other 2, I like the other 2 better. But it was a good purchase, right?
Yeah.
It was the cheapest of all of them. I was listed at like $450, and after having it under contract twice, I ended up picking up for $405 and $10K in concessions. That was nice.
That's great.
Yeah, and then the third house they wanted like $585, and after 3 months or 2 months, we got it for $465. So I like that house too.
Yeah,
big discount. Yeah, but yeah, and then the third house is kind of a mix of both, and it's just strange how you can have. And there's the second 2 houses are 1/8 of a mile from each other. So you could argue, demographic in this area is different than that. Okay, maybe, but this demographic pretty much the same. And yet the houses are totally different. It's the people.
Right.
So,
yeah. Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, you guys are, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you guys are getting the caffeine. I don't know if you guys caffeine kicking in thing.
Oh, good. I know. I'm on my second cup of coffee today, so East Coast.
So I saw in one of your videos that you're talking about how Pad Split is changing up their things. And you're talking about phasing them out and doing something else. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in May of 2024, Pad Split and their infinite wisdom decided to change their fee structure. And I I'm not trying to bash them. They're a company. They got to do what they got to do. They got to be profitable, right? So they changed their fee structure, and it used to be all three of my properties are on the legacy. Well, actually, that's not true. January 1st, the first one flipped over to the new fee structure. So let me tell you the old fee structure, then tell me the new, then I'll tell you the new fee structure. The old fee structure was pretty high. It was essentially 15% of gross that they'd take. Okay, they provide member acquisition and they provide a platform where members can communicate on, and they collect the rents. That's mainly what they do. They don't they say that they help with members, and they do in the form of, hey, here's some software a member can rate another member. Right? So it's not going to be um, passive, right? You're not going to buy it and use Pad Split and they manage everything, right? So,
Right.
and then I do all the maintenance, but you're going to get involved, especially if you want to have a good service. You're going to be involved in somebody ate my peanut butter kind of thing or whatever. You know what I mean? That kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But the I lost my train of thought. What was you were talking about the fee structure? So the fee
Right.
structure, it was 15%, and then in May of 2024, they changed it to any new hosts coming onto Pad Split would have to do the new fee structure, which is 10-day rake. It's like the first 10 days of every new member, they're going to take 100% of that. And then they changed it from the 14.75 or the 15% to 8%. So if you do the math on that, you're not going to recoup that until about 8 months. And they'll tell you the same thing if you ask them. But what I don't like about it is when they first came out, they were very PR sensitive, saying, oh, this is to incentivize hosts to be better hosts, to keep people long term, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that just didn't make any sense to me. The whole structure is set up for transitory people, right? Yeah, you want to
Right.
keep people as long as you can, but if you want people longer, don't furnish the rooms, don't do a lot of the stuff they're doing. It's not built to be permanent, although I'd like it to be. It's more of a temporary thing for a lot of people that are moving into the area and need a place for a few months until they find a permanent place, or somebody that's trying to catch up on their bills, or somebody that, hey, maybe they don't make a lot and that's all they can afford for now for maybe a longer time. I've got people been with me over a year, so there's that too. But just by its nature, it's not a 1 year lease. It's a 30-day commitment with week to week after that. So they came out and said, we're doing this to incentivize hosts to be better. And I'm like, man, what more can I do? I'm doing everything. I got cleaning services and really nice. We spent, 27 grand on reno and, nice granite and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I was really kind of put off by that. So I didn't buy anything after that. So then Ellis, the local EA for Arizona,
Yeah.
he set up a meeting with Atticus and I talked to Atticus one-on-one about it. And he told me, he goes, no, it's more for the acquisition cost. They say it's cost about $750 a member to acquire. So it's so expensive, and they're spending so much on marketing that they had to do something. And so they changed up the fee structure for this. And I don't disagree with it. I'm just saying, if I go out and buy a new house and I have 8 bedrooms that are non-occupied, and then all of a sudden they take the first 10 days of all 8 rooms, and then half of those people over the course of a month or two move out, and then I have to pay those 4 bedrooms again and again and again. That first year is going to suck. And if you go out and spend the amount of money and the time and effort and all the energy to get one of these up and running, to me, I'm not going to say it's not worth it, but in the first year, it's going to be rough. Now, my existing properties, I rolled one over because that's not the same. That's different. So if I lose a member, okay, now that member, they state the 12% plus a 2.75 member fee until there's a member that moves out. And then when the new member moves in, they take the first 10 days and that room switches over to 8%, is the way I understood it, because they don't want to change it on the existing members. That is not that big of a hit when you have one. That's just like a vacancy in a way.
Right.
But the difference is I have 7 other rooms paying the mortgage, right? If I get into a new property where I spent all that money and blah, 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 because it'll take me 2 months to get it functional, up and running, construction and all that. So then by the time I go live, then I get hit with these 10 days on every room. Dude, that sucks.
Yeah.
So to me, it didn't make sense. So that pushed me into what a lot of other people have done, which is go out and do their own co-living. right? So like pad split's kind of the training wheels for co-living. So if you wanted to get into co-living, get started, yeah, man, it's great. Get in, leverage pad split, learn from them, blah blah blah, and then keep going with them, or do something else. But for me, I'm going to have to seriously consider doing it myself moving forward, because I just can't see paying that hit up front, unless I can negotiate with them. And I've been talking to them, but they've done some things, by the way, because of the feedback they got. There's so many new investors like me got so bent. Like one guy, he sold all 5 of his properties and moved, and he's doing in his hometown. He's in Austin, and I know that real estate's tough there, but he's doing co-living himself in Austin, so he's managing it all local. So good for him. And a lot of people have done that. I'm out of state. I like Arizona. I'm going to stay in Arizona for investing. So I'll probably buy a house, give it a shot. Hey, I'll try the co-living. If I can't do it, then I'll ping pad split, say, hey man, I suck. You guys are worth it. Go for it. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So do you think, I guess, with the pad split and everything, are you seeing a rapid turnaround with your members, or is it, I know because it's temporary, but are you seeing higher than normal waits, or higher than normal people
No,
leaving?
no, this kind of dovetails in what I was mentioning. They changed
Yeah.
some things. So they because of the feedback from a lot of the investors, they are sensitive to it. And they've added some stuff like a 12-week commitment, right? So a 3-month
Okay.
commitment. So that's good. And so people either do that or they pay $175 up front. And then they also have a thing where if you use the QR code that's designed for you and you go out and acquire that member, you don't pay the 8% because they're not
Nice.
paying the market. Their marketing ramps up. It's not solid. It's very cyclical. So like when the market's low, they don't put much into marketing, but when they need it, they'll ramp it up.
Gotcha.
But I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I got myself off the rails again. I've got too much stuff going on. What was the original question there?
No, no, yeah, it was that it was just more trying to figure out, uh have you seen also uh with members leaving, do you see a equal amount of time in between, or is it,
Yeah,
do
it
you feel pretty
depends. So like
fast?
it depends. So there's some people that, and that's why it takes time to stabilize the properties, because you have a variety of reasons people would want to stay in a room, right? Like, you've got someone that's looking for a permanent place, but until they find it, they stay there. So that's a temporary, like 3-4 months, depends on how long it takes. You've got other people that are there for construction. I've got one house that, for whatever reason, that tends to be where the construction workers go. There's usually 1 or 2 there, and they come usually from Texas, and so they come into Arizona for a 4-month stint, whatever construction they're doing, and then they go back. So those are obviously turnovers. But then you have people that come and I never hear from, and they stay for over a year. Like I've got a couple now that have been with the year, and that's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
They're great and all that. So it's really up and down the gamut. It's not usually in the first 2 months or so, you'll know if you have a feeling if they're going to stay for a while or if they're just temporary. They usually tell you up front anyway.
Okay.
About 60-70% of them will say, hey, I'm here because of such and such, or this is a new trend. I don't know what's going on, but broke up with my girlfriend, need a place for a while. I've had that, I don't know, 2 or 3 people in the last like 5 months. And then one
Really?
guy, the other way around, he had, I don't know what's going on there, but he had broke up with one girl, then met another one, and then he moved out, and he was gone for like a month or 2. And then he came back. He's like, "Oh, that was a mistake." I'm like, "Dude," and I was like, "Cool, whatever, man." And he's great. So I mean, it's interesting to get to know some of the people and some of the stories and things. And the insurance adjusters are awesome. They're never there. They're like flying off right now to California. It's sad. And then before it
Yeah.
was Florida, and so they're just always flying over the place. But they pay rent. They don't make any noise because they're not there, and they're great.
Right. That's, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Man. And so I know you've been talking about, yeah, a little bit for the year long ones. So do you see that being a trend as well, especially with
No, that's
potential
rare.
worry?
That's
Okay.
rare. Out of 24 units, I've got 2.
Two.
So
Oh wow. Okay, that is rare.
yeah, that's pretty rare.
So
I like them though. I mean, that's great.
yeah. Yeah. And have you dealt with I guess, with talking about jobs and everything, H-1B visas? Is that something that you entertain?
I know what that is. That's out of state work permits or work visas.
Out of country
Out of
work
country.
visas.
Yeah, out
Yeah.
of country.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get into it. I don't.
Okay.
So that's what Pad Split does, the upfront vetting.
Ah,
They
okay.
do all that background check. So for me, I have Rent Ready, and I was planning on leveraging them, and I haven't used it yet, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But that was kind of the rough idea. I have it through Bigger Pockets Pro, and I've set it all up once because I was originally going to do co-living out of the gate, just not through Pad Split. But in my videos, I talk about why.
Right.
Um, is basically we ran it as an Airbnb and we had to furnish it anyway. So we decided to go ahead and furnish it. And then I thought, well, shit, there's nothing stopping me. Let's just do the Pad Split and see what happens. So we did, and we kept doing it because it was lucrative. So it worked out pretty good.
That's great.
Yeah. Sometimes the things, I don't know, I'm kind of a things happen for a reason kind of person. You know what I mean? Like, and I actually, I owe the state of Oregon and our wonderful federal government a big thank you because they pissed me off to the point with taxes. They actually got me to read a book. I don't read books. Now I read like 12 of them, right? Like a duh. I mean, I was technical manuals and back in the army, I used to read books a lot, but got older and got busy with life and just whatever. Anyway, Tax Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. That book changed my life. It did. I got so pissed off. I wanted to save money on taxes. And so I read that book, and basically the book said, you're a dumbass, get into real estate. Okay. Because I've been watching real estate since 2000, and I bought my first house when I was 25, a younger guy. And then I sold it and made like 50 grand. I was like, yay, but I rolled it into the next house and then rolled it into the next house. I wasn't anyway. So I've always kind of made money on personal homes, buying and selling, but not like an investor. And I always thought this would be cool, but I was so busy with corporate world. They did a good job of keeping me busy. But lately, last 3 years, I guess, with the taxes and everything, pissed me off to the point where got into it, and then I'm glad for it, right? So I'm thanking them for being so bad that it pushed me into actually, doing something about it. So I didn't look to get into real estate. I was just trying to save money on taxes, and that's how I got into real estate. So
That's awesome.
I'm an accidental real estate investor. So
that's fantastic. Jack?
Jack's on mute.
No, you're on mute, Jack.
Sorry that the cat was meowing earlier. I forgot to take myself off mute. Um, have you seen any patterns or anything with your portfolio?
Like patterns as far as
Like just like either between the people or the houses, or even like when you walk the properties and stuff, or just anything you've seen reoccurring that you didn't realize going into it. You're like, oh, this is a trend I'm starting to see.
Yeah, I've only got three, but the light trends I see, and a year is probably not long enough to make any judgments or say this is a trend. But in the little time that I've had, I have noticed that the Glendale house, even though it's in a nice neighborhood, does tend to have more problems than the rest. And I can only guesstimate. Well, one, I've had it longer, so there's that, about 4 months longer than the others. But the area, I guess, might be the impact there, or the I don't want to say the members, I guess. The members that live there, I tend to have a little bit more issues with that house than the other two. One house is in Glendale, the other two in Phoenix, and North Phoenix, like below the 101. So east of the I-17 and south of the 101, that area. And that area is pretty decent. I've got people that work at TSMC. There's a couple hospitals over there. I've got a nurse. I don't know what they call it. It's not, there's another person that's not a nurse. They're some assistant or something, but
A
it's
physician's assistant.
Yeah. And then I got another lady. I don't want to ask her what she does, but she drives one of those. I don't want to say morgue, but it's something to do with that. And I'm like, I don't want to know what that is. It's like something in the medical field also, but it's like body transport or something.
Wow.
And I don't want to know what that is, man. I just don't.
Medical transportation.
Well, I have in the Glendale house, I have one of those too. Yeah, we'll call it that. But I have another lady that does that for elderly folks. They do transport in another place. But this one it looks a little more dark, and I don't want to
know. Wow. I mean, so for the Glendale, is it more because it's a higher end area, and so you're gonna have that kind of, or is it because I flushed my jacket down? Oh, okay.
Other way around. Okay. Yeah,
gotcha.
I mean, they're all like C plus B minus neighborhoods, but the two Phoenix houses are a little bit better. Like they probably might even be a B minus, like maybe. But the Glendale's definitely a C plot, maybe a C. But
Gotcha.
it's nice. This pocket within a mile, like the further south you go, in my opinion,
Mm.
at least on the west side, is a little rough. And you go more north. If you look at a crime map, it'll tell you. And I am just above. I'm about a couple blocks, or actually more than a couple blocks. I don't know. Within a mile, everything's cool there. But outside that mile, it gets a little rough. Well, the businesses and things that people work at are probably over a mile from the house, so they're working in those areas. And so, um, I don't know. It just something I noticed. So if I had to do it again, I don't regret it. I just now I know what I know now, and I know the east side is better in Arizona. At least that's the consensus. But for me, the affordability was just way too high. Like you're going to pay for it. And now that we've come a little ways, I've proven out the model. I'm pretty comfortable with it. That's why we sort of migrated east, even though it's still Phoenix, but it's North Phoenix, closer to TSMC. And that was a guess, and
Right.
it worked because I've got, I think, three, maybe two now. But I had a couple people from TSMC, and TSMC, like security guards and different construction things, come from that, and that's kind of nice. It's about 15 minutes away. Um, and the hospitals are big too up there, so that was nice. But I'm moving east. It's costing me more, but I'm willing to spend the money now because I know what I'm buying, right? I mean, I've got a feel for, and not to mention the appreciation. Just in the last year, I know we've been flat to 1 or 2%, but the two houses I bought up north, even though I've only had them for about 8 months, I've already appreciated a tick or two above the Glendale house that I've had since August of 23. Right. So, I mean, there's that. I'm not buying for appreciation, but the potential for appreciation down the road. I don't want to buy in like the Midwest somewhere and then not have, any appreciation in whatever market. That's why it's not the play. The play is cash flow, but just in the back of my head, I'm kind of thinking I want to be in a more of a appreciating
Yeah.
area. And then also that, like, back to the Dion thing, less hassle, right? It just seems to me, and in talking to other hosts, you have a little bit different, I'll say, clientele on the east side than you do on the west side. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Ooh. And then, so I guess the other thing was regarding the east side. Are you thinking that that's probably where you'd be going, or is from now on? And then
Yeah, from now
you're
on.
one, and then okay, so with that, with the higher price, are you going to have a minimum number of value added rooms, or could you say worst case scenario, get away with those 4 rooms that you buy and maybe wait to build out later?
Oh no, you couldn't even get away with 4 rooms on the west side. Uh,
Really?
yeah, it's, well, your house is like I said, I think my cheapest purchase was 405, 10K concession. So 400,
Right.
450, and then 465. So
Yeah.
you're 450, let's say. You're gonna be paying 450, which means, especially with the rates the way they are now, which I'm fine with, by the way. I'm
Yeah.
cool with that. Because they're cash flowing now, and I'm buying in such a way that if I had to, a long-term rental would work. Not
Great.
well, like I'd break even and make $100, but I wouldn't lose the property. And I will say, for anybody listening, I do have a W-2. So I can take risks. So I don't want people to listen to this and go, oh, blah blah, I'm gonna go do that. Everybody's situation is completely different. So I've got money in the bank. I have a W-2. I've got a 240K HELOC I can pull from. So I've got many different levers to pull if I get in trouble. But even still, you guys have seen my numbers. I'm very conservative. I run my occupancy at 75%. Who does
Right.
that? I do, because I want to make sure I'm not in trouble. And that also applies to the debt that I'm putting on these houses. So
Right.
I'm putting debt on the house to where it, for two reasons. One, I want to, and two, the lenders require it, especially for now. Also, the back to the consider your source. I'm a relatively new investor. I don't even have 1 year of tax returns under my belt. So lenders look at me like I'm freaking crazy, and maybe I am, but so we bought 3 houses in 8 months, and they're like, "What the hell?" But so consider who you're listening to out there, and this is good advice for anybody. Like, I listen to just about everybody, all the people I can listen to, and I pull pieces from them. But you got to consider where they're at in their journey, what resources they have relative to yours. I wouldn't compare yourself to other people. So anyway, enough of that said. So I'm willing to do certain things because I can take a risk and I can move east and pay 50 to 100 grand more for those properties. But to me, it's worth it, right? Like initially when I started looking, I was looking in the south of Phoenix and a place called Maryville. I call it Scarysville because this is where the spreadsheet math. I was like, wow, this is fantastic, blah blah blah, and it's nice bigger house because those older homes have bigger lots and bigger properties, or at least potential for other rooms. So I get down there and I'm like, oh, day one, I flew down there and I'm driving the neighborhood. I was like, oh no, this ain't happening. So I called my realtor and said, hey man, get me somewhere else. And so that's why we went north to North Glendale and then that's when I started looking at the crime map and I was like, okay, crime, not that you can make it work, but not for me. So I moved up and found a good pocket. And then I've learned over time and now I'm moving east. So yeah, like Chandler and even Gilbert are the two areas I'm really looking at. And not worst case, but I don't want to go north of that. I don't want to be, I mean, I will, but like Mesa, certain areas are good. Tempe, certain areas are good, but I stay away from the college areas. Yeah, so Chandler is the main focus, then Gilbert, real second, close second, and then Mesa, certain pockets are good in Tempe. So yeah, East Valley.
Okay, cool.
And Scottsdale I can't afford, so I don't even mention it. It's way too expensive.
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Yeah, even the cheapest fixer there I've seen is like 6+, and that's a fixer.
Really?
Yeah, so you're gonna dump $150 into that, so you're gonna be at 750, and it just doesn't make any sense even at 8 bedrooms. So
Yeah. So for those Class A markets, though, I mean, would you even have a clientele for that? I mean, would they go for it, or do you think
yeah, there are, but there's it's for a couple weird reasons. Like there's a lot of restaurants and a lot of businesses over there, right? And so certain areas now, even though those are high priced or what I considered high priced homes, the homes are in like the 60s and the 70s, like they're old, right? And so it's not like top notch. Some of them have been redone over the years and all that, but if you bought the home, it's not like the Ritz. It's just if you're in Scottsdale, most of Scottsdale, there's certain parts of Scottsdale they're not, but you're gonna be paying for it just for the zip code, right?
Yeah.
And so some people want to be close to that are in the restaurant industry and all that, and they want to save money, and so there is a market for it, but I can't afford it.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not for me. I'd love it to be, maybe someday. So who knows?
So you're going to have to get going soon because of your Sunday meeting, which if any of you guys are listening, make sure to tune in to Jared's Sunday accountability meeting. So, two-part question for you before you go. You talked a little bit about both of them. So how do you balance your W-2 with everything you're doing? And how did it feel when you got to the break-even point for the first time with your rentals covering your bills and stuff?
I redid the math like 4 times because I'm like, there's no way this happens, right? Because there's just no way. But yeah, that was that was about 6 months ago. We got to the point where our rental property, was it 6 months ago? Maybe 5 months ago. I don't know. A while ago, where our rental property income pays for all our expenses. But to preface this again, we cut our expenses pretty thin. Like our fixed rate's about, well, actually it's less now because our mortgage just changed, but about 4,500 is our fixed rate. And we have a variable there of about 2 grand. So let's say 6,500 is the worst case. Now we hit 6 grand net, 6,700 net, somewhere in there. But I tell people I hit 4,500 net because we had a bad September, and we hit I think 44 because we had a property. This is the story about the guy that tanked everything, right. So that sucked. So the W-2 covers it. But how do I balance it? That's a good question. I have no idea because it's just controlled chaos, man. Like I think again, consider the source. I had a year off. I was at Intel 23 years. I took a buyout, so I had a chunk of money, and that chunk of money, I didn't want to pay the taxes on it. So that's another reason I got into real estate. But I got into real estate prior to doing that. I'd sold all my toys because I read after the tax-free wealth. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Those are liabilities. Okay, so I had a badass 500 horsepower Jeep. I sold that, and that hurt. So, but it had I'm going to swing off for a second. You said how to balance, but let me touch on something. For those of you that have a spouse or a significant other, and they think you're crazy for getting into real estate, this happened to me by accident. I sold the Jeep because I wanted the money from the Jeep, and then I sold the toy hauler, and then I sold the Denali and whatever. So put that on whatever something you have that may be worth value that you could sell and get into real estate. I did that and then used that money to buy the first house. But on a side note, that got my wife on board because my wife, I told her, hey, I'm going to quit my job and go do real estate. She's like, are you out of your effing mind? And so, because I was such an off road, that was my main hobby, passion. I put a bunch of money and time and effort. And I used to be a mechanic too back in the day. So I'd work on my own stuff. Anyway, I got really into Jeep. That was like my 14th wheeling rig, off road rig. So when I sold that, she knew I was serious. Like that had a huge impact that I didn't even see.
Oh,
That wasn't
nice.
the main driver. Right. So that's a good segue. Anyway, so balancing the W-2, I didn't have the W-2 for a year. So that's what gave me the time to go out, leverage, learn, get on these YouTube, read books. I cheated audiobooks and all that and gain the knowledge. And I studied the market like Zuber said, but I hadn't even found Zuber. I found Dion first. And then down the road, I found Zuber through Dion. I was like, oh, cool. But I had luckily done kind of what he was saying. I studied the market because I want to know what I was getting into. I'll preface this again. I know we're oh, it's only 12:03. We got about 27 minutes. I had done for the last 23 years when I was working at Intel just for fun, flipping things like generators, little Honda EU 2000 generators. There's a whole story there. And then that led into quads. I like quads of selling ATVs and stuff like that. And then that turned into trailers. And then I flipped trailers for like 15 years. I mean, I made 20 grand on a trailer in a week.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if you know the market, my point in saying all this is if you know the market and you know what things go for and the value of them, you can make money, right? You make your money when you buy, not when you sell. So I figured if I could apply that logic to real estate, now I'm not trying to sell anytime soon, totally different thing, but long term down the road, potentially. So anyway, that's what I gave me a little bit of confidence, at least, I don't know, enough craziness to go for it. So I had the time off, is what I'm trying to get at. I had the time off. I was lucky enough to have the money from the buyout and selling toys and whatnot. And so we went for it, had enough capital to keep us afloat for a long time. So, consider the source, right? So I got into it. I did a pilot. It was successful. So we bought another one and then another one, and it worked out within that year, right? And so now I went back to work. So Intel's like, hey, we want you to come back. Now I was a second level manager. Now I'm a first line manager, but the pay is the same, so I don't care. So I took, and they gave me a signing bonus. So I was like, all right, cool. So but I had to wait. If I went back prior to that 1 year mark, I would have had to repay everything, and I wasn't going to pay to go back to work. So we pushed out the hiring date 3 days past the year mark, so I didn't have to pay any of that back. So anyway, consider the source. That's how I did it.
So when you're talking about trailers and stuff, are you talking like like open car trailers, or big ones, little ones, just a trailer?
Everything. I started off with toy haulers by accident. I had bought a toy hauler because I got into quads when I was younger, ATVs, and I really liked them. And I was like, oh, this is cool, but I did enough time in the army to where I don't tent camp. Ain't happening, man. Army cured me of that. So I was like, I'm gonna get something. So I found this toy hauler for 8 grand, which I knew was cheap. And it was a nice one. It was a Raging toy hauler. It was a 23 footer, just a tow behind bumper pull. But it was built really well, and it was at a consignment place where I think it had some roof problems. They fixed the roof and everything, and they did a good job on it. I was like, okay, cool. So I bought it and I used it for like 3 years. And I was like, well, I need to upgrade and get a bigger one. And I sold that thing for 13 grand. So I made 5 grand off of it. And I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. So then I was like, all right. So I started targeting those. And then I learned over time that Forest River is a good, I don't know if it's a brand or whatever the umbrella is, but anything made by Forest River is pretty good. And a couple other ones in there, but stay the hell away from Weekend Warriors. And you could tell anyway, and I did buy one. So I never lost money on a trailer. I broke even once, and simply because of a generator that it had that I sold separately, and that broke even. It was a Weekend Warrior. So yeah, I would do toy haulers, and then I had flatbed trailers. And then there was this weird thing that happened back in, I think it was after the 2008 crash, somewhere in there in 2009, 2010. People couldn't get, like right now, this might be a thing again. If somebody's into trailers, I doubt they're moving to Oregon, but there was some article that came out said Oregon's wonderful, blah blah blah, and everybody and their mother was moving up here. And instead of renting a U-Haul or whatever, they would just buy a trailer. And a few people that came from Florida, buy a trailer, drive up here, and then sell it. And they were brand new. So I was like, cool. So I would buy it. They didn't really care and they didn't want to deal with it. So I would get a discount, disrespectful offers.
Right.
And I would pick it up and I would sit on it for a while, for a month or two sometimes, and then resell it brand new. And then I had several of those purchases where some lady was moving out of state and she just wanted to get rid of. I bought a really basically brand new bumper pull with one of the cabins in the back for the kids for like $9,000. I cleaned it up because it was sitting in a field for a long time. I think they used it like twice. Right. Something stupid. Like I cleaned it up and sold that for $15,000, like within no time. The guy thought it was a scam. He's like, I don't understand. Cause those things go for like 22, or at the time 22. Now they're like 30,000 or whatever. But yeah, so I got into that. And then I even did trailer renting for a while. I put the GPS trackers on them. I had a big fifth wheel flatbed, a couple bumper pools. I was doing that for a while and it was okay. And I don't know. I was just screwing around, stuff to do on the side, just make a few bucks. And it helped us with paying for vacations and things like that. It was fun.
I thought about doing the trailer repairs before, and since you mentioned that you actually did it, that's why I was asking. But yeah, there's always trailers coming in and out of coming from a family of dirt track and drag racers. There's always trailers coming and going and stuff.
Yeah, we've got that right out here. PIR, or not PIR, but I forget what they call it. We got a dirt track race out here, not too far from me.
Wow. So do you miss that, or do you think you would ever go back to that once you say like get the real estate kind of leveled off, or would you say that
Go
was the
back,
time?
go back
Like,
to what?
like going back to trailers, or
No,
maybe playing with your
no,
outside toys.
it was just a stepping stone. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work, and it was just something fun to do on the side. I'm getting older now. I'm more focused on just flat out real estate, man. Like I miss the Jeep. Don't get me wrong. Like it hurts. And then I did something kind of bad. I removed just about all my Facebook online 4x4 friends. I mean, I cut everything out. I kept a couple people just because we became pretty good friends. And then every now and again they'll post something and I'm like, shit. Like I covered pretty much everything I wanted to do except for a couple things, which is I did King of the Hammers for off-road people. I did King of the Hammers, Johnson Valley, California. Freaking awesome. Been on there several times, loved it. Moab, all that stuff, all the local stuff here. Did all that for years. It's fun. Around here, it did get kind of boring. I've done everything up there you can do. And then I did go down to Hurricane, Utah, St. George, Moab and all that.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite place. The two favorite places I had were St. John's, Johnson Valley in California for King of the Hammers. That's a freaking absolute blast. I love that. And then also Hurricane, Utah, St. George. I mean, dude, that place it's fantastic. So I'm glad I did all that. But one of the things I didn't do, and I wanted to, and I never got around to it, was the in California, the big one. Oh wow. Glad I forgot it though. Crap.
Yeah,
It's the
it's
one that
okay.
everybody does. It's just a trail. It takes you like 3 days. And it's not really, I mean, it's off-roading, but it's Rubicon. I couldn't think of it. Yeah, it's the Rubicon, and you can take a, rig through there or whatever. And I just wanted to do it just for the hell of it, but it required camping. So that was the hang up. I was like, I got to get my air mattress and a tent someday. And I never did it. So, but someday I'll do that.
Nice. And I guess that's cool. But I going back to real estate, so you've been able to turbocharge everything in a year and some change. What are you thinking for the next year, maybe to 3 years for the co-living plan?
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that. I was working on this spreadsheet last night. Let me bring this up. So we have, I mean, I do want to get into maybe partner with somebody in the future, but that takes time and you get to get to know people and you got to have common goals and all that. But just me, just with my finances, I can see where we at here. I'm gonna not see you guys for a second. Yeah, so we've got 3 houses now. I can get to 6 houses just with the money I have right now. I'm just looking for deals. So, and then at that point, those 6 houses would bring in 9,100 net, and then 110 net for the year,
Yeah.
which that's a significant number because my W-2 brings in 108 net. So at that point, once we get these next 3 properties online, we will make more net than we will than the job, and that's interesting.
That's exciting though.
Yeah, it
Wow.
is. And then if the rates come down at some point, because I've got a significant amount of equity in two of the properties right now, and it's a little bit of appreciation, but it was more of the massive down payments I was putting on these things. Because
Yeah.
remember, I'm not I'm nobody. Right? I just started, and the banks are like, "Who the hell are you?" So they made me put down 25% down on the first one, and then 30% down on the next one, and signed everything on a planet. I mean, I went through hell to get these things, but I got them. And so I could buy like that six, and then the seventh one, if I could cash out refi, that could get me another one easily. So I'd be at seven, and then at that point, let me move you guys off to the side here so I can see this whole spreadsheet. But yeah, if I got the seventh one, that would put me at 10.6 net, and these are conservative numbers,
right?
128 net. Gross on that, by the way, would be 392,000 gross. So if I get to the right now, I'm at this year was 168,000, or I think it was 164,000 gross, something like that.
Yeah.
Next year, if I did absolutely nothing, I should have hit 200 gross, just simply because the first 4 months I only had one property. Yeah. And then if you take the 6-month running average, I think it was 107. And so it'd be 214 for the year, and that's conservative. So I just cut it down to 200 gross if I just did nothing. But then we're obviously going to add more properties, so I can buy another primary, live in one of the rooms, and then rent house hack, right? Do that, and I can get into that for 25 grand down on a $500,000 house, closing fees and all that. But a lot of the sellers now are capitulating fast. I mean, instantly on concessions, because they're trying to sell. There's no buyers. So right. I think I can get into, let's just call it 35 grand or whatever. So I can get into that 35 grand. It leaves me a couple $100,000. And even if I had to do the 20% down, I think I could be 20% down after I do the taxes, right? So after I do my taxes, I'll have something on paper. Then I could probably get away with the 20 grand down. But let's say I can't, or then the 20 grand down, that's why I have 100 per house. But I did find a credit union that will do a 10% down. It's called Mako, the Mountain America Credit Union. And they'll do 10% down if you have a W-2 on investment property. So if I can pull that off after I do my taxes, then I could buy 4, and that will crazily jump it up. But having money is good, right? Obviously, but the other thing that I'm doing is I'm doing a multiple strategies. So I'm using velocity banking. And I won't get into it, but if you want to find out a way to use debt to pay down debt really, really fast, Google velocity banking. And, and there'll be some channels and things out there that calls it scam or whatever, but that's because they're trying to make money off of YouTube. But the real people out there, I think a Korean Atlantic is one guy, and then the other one is Fantastic. Both those people are, and I'm doing it. So like you can run the numbers. It's just math. And I'm actually doing it and have been for years. So I'm able to supercharge in that way as well, because we're taking advantage of the banking system using their own debt structure against them, if you will. So
yeah, that's fantastic. And then, so would you say that with these additional properties, would you have the capacity to manage it yourself and do the interviews, or do you think that would be something that you might have to, like you were saying, trying to find a partner to maybe split that up?
So what I've done is, along the way, I would like to find a partner, because my goal is to get time back. And this does take time. It's better than a W-2. So like in the future, when we get to where we get to, I could manage it and we could travel, and I could probably do most of it on the phone, but I would like to try to get somebody in there. And as a result, the whole long way, what I'm doing is I'm documenting what I'm doing, like both on paper or on software, Word, let's say, but I'm also doing Loom videos. So like I'm recording what I'm doing when I have a turnover. Actually, I've already implemented some of this. My cleaning lady now does everything herself. I don't have to call her and say, hey, I need to flip on this. Now that requires her to be integrated into Pad Split. So that's a dependency on Pad Split there.
Right.
Which may play into me maybe doing another Pad Split, even though it'll be a hit. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. They're trying to work with the cost. If I can get to a point where it's not going to kill me to do it, I'll probably do another Pad Split, but I wouldn't mind doing a co-living. I have to do it anyway for the house as a primary. So I might as well buy the primary. I can punch that primary ticket every year. So I want to, because it's cheap entry fee. So I'm going to buy a house, live in one of the rooms, and rent out the other ones. And I'll try out the co-living there, and I'll use Rent Ready for that and see if she's willing to do it. But anyway, on the Pad Split one, both my handyman and my cleaning lady are already tied into the Pad Split as team members. And so the cleaning lady's already up to speed. I've just been sitting back and watching. Whenever there's a room flip, she goes in, moves it's a Kanban board. If you guys are familiar with that, like, okay, you have your open ticket and it's in progress and then it's done or complete or whatever. And so she's handling all that, and she lets me know when she's done, and I send her the payment through Zelle. And
Nice.
the handyman, I've got him in there too, but I haven't gone through training. But anyway, I'm recording Loom videos for that potential in the future for a property manager or somebody to take over in that space. So I'm preparing for that. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. And as I learn things, it's better to learn on my own than bring somebody on and say, hey, here you go, figure it out. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's a great point. That's fantastic.
well, it's also in case I get hurt or injured or whatever. I was watching Bigger Pockets, and one of the guys on there had some kind of nerve. A couple of people actually, and I know Mike Baum. I work with him at Intel. Actually,
Wow.
he's on there, Bigger Pockets. But anyway,
Yeah.
they were talking about that, and I thought, okay, well, if I'm incapacitated and not able to manage this, at least my wife and son could help out, have a fighting chance to get in there and figure out what's going on. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. I can't wait for the future. I mean, it sounds like
And
you're
you-
almost building a course in this almost or something like that.
yeah, and I am putting stuff together, and I'm one of those guys that I just like to give it away for free. I mean, because I'm not trying to make any money on it, but I just want more people to get out there and try it. And we do have an affordable housing problem, right? And this
Yeah.
could help. And people like it. Like I got one lady that a few people have really thanked me, like heartfelt. You could tell, like they're like, "Hey, thank you for doing this. This really helped out." I mean, things are getting bad out there, man.
Yeah.
If you can provide a nice, clean, safe place that people appreciate it. You know what I mean? And it's relatively inexpensive, really, because I mean they're coming in at like 800 and some bucks a month versus the cheapest you're going to find anywhere in these areas. Well, you might be able to find like 1,000, but like usually it's about 1,200. But you got first and last and deposit, and you're paying utilities and all that stuff. Whereas
Right.
pay 800 and some bucks a month, and I cover all of that. Utilities, Wi-Fi, fast Wi-Fi, cleaning services is actually better, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're providing a pretty damn good service here. So
I can't wait to hear more. This is yeah.
yeah, it's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it can suck though. There's
No,
people,
yeah.
it can, but try to keep positive attitude, do the best mitigation that I can, and go forward. And the law of averages, we're doing pretty good. Actually really good in my book. But
That's excellent. I know, yeah. I mean, it's been great. I've really enjoyed watching your updates and everything because you're saying, hey, here are the parts that this is awesome. There's a lot of great growth here, but then you're like, okay, this month sucked. That like when you're talking about September, it's like, oh, like that was like I wanted to talk to you more about it too. So I'm really glad we had this chance to talk today because there's a lot of really good potential.
Yeah, that sucked. And as a result, I'm trying to stay more in tune with what's going on. My cleaning lady gives me updates, and I look at, if they rate each other, I look at why, obviously, and see all that kind of stuff. Like I've got a potential brewing situation in one of the houses right now with one. Yeah. And the weird, here's one for you, Jack. You said, hey, you notice any trends? Room two, and every one of the houses is like the cursed number. Especially in the Glendale house, and then in the Kathleen house, same thing. And then the other one, it's been hit and miss, but room 2, for whatever reason, is just weird. So that's a weird trend, but yeah. So I mean, there's pitfalls along the way, but I think if you get better and better, just like anything else, hell, I'm the first. It's 1 year in. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy.
Yeah.
Overall, I can look back at the year and go, okay, I'm pretty damn happy. Yeah, we had, I don't know, probably 3 big things. The one guy that scared everybody off, that sucked, and another guy that was detoxing, and that was a nightmare. Room 2 again, and then a couple other little knickknack things, but nothing big. Guy driving his scooter into the walls and doors, and whatever. Yeah. It is what it is. But.
Yeah, I guess that brings back to the members thing. So, how many members do you say that you're interviewing per room or per I would even say a week? How many would you say you're interviewing?
So Pad Split does all the upfront gathering, right? So the sample size that I see is a fraction of how many people that are probably coming through. I have certain criteria like no evictions and obviously criminal background checks and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But once they get to me, I'd say about 85-90% we've been accepting. I mean, well, maybe that might be a little high. I'd probably say 80. Probably in the 80s range, because for whatever reason, even though I told Pat Split I don't do evictions, I get maybe 1 in 10's an eviction. I'm like, right off the bat, I'm not doing that because I tried that before. I think it had a 33%. It's just, to me, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the risk.
Yeah.
So I don't do evictions anymore. And then some people hear no guests and then they bail on their own. Perfect. Yeah, the guest one's a big one. So I go through the rules, and if they don't like the rules, then cool, then they bail. And that's 100% fine. I know people are going to be like, oh, you lost a member. No, you didn't. You avoided a problem in the future. That's what you did. So
Yeah.
it's just absolutely not worth it, in my opinion. So
That's a great point.
yeah.
So I think now would be a good time to wrap it up. Jared, you only got a few more minutes before you have to start your Sunday accountability meeting.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for joining me, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks for having me on, Jack and Harris.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
anytime.
Yeah.